Welcome to our 2024 season of the Cloud Industry Forum presents TWF show. We're speaking to you live from our mixed reality newsroom experience created by our friends here at Disruptive Live. This is our weekly video podcast where we interview a guest from our members or someone doing something cool in cloud technology or AI or transformation, or maybe they've got a book out or they've got something to say about what's coming next. I'm David Terrar. I'm the CEO of the Cloud Industry Forum, which is a not-for-profit trade body that champions and helps accelerate the adoption of cloud technology and services. If you want to find out more about us, we're at cloudindustryforum.org. I'm at DT on X, David_Terrar on Threads and Instagram, and easy to find on the web and LinkedIn and the like. Now, on this show, we talk a lot about technology, but we often hear how crucial the leadership and people factors are to getting it right too. And so today's guest is someone I've just been introduced to as someone who does biohacking. We'll get him to explain that, but he's a performance coach who aims to help you unlock your full potential. I read that he's been a UK MMA champion, a Judo Black Belt. He's written a book called Limitless, which I'm intrigued by. Looks really interesting. He's got a podcast, he's worked with some of our members, and he's worked with various tech companies. He's Nick Powell. I'm really looking forward to finding out more. Nick, welcome to the show. Please, can you introduce yourself and your company and what you do?
Thank you, David. So I'm Nick Powell. I'm a transformation consultant, and I've been working in the transformation space for over 20 years. In the last 5 years, I've started an executive coaching business, which is very much focused on human performance.
Excellent. Now, before we get into biohacking and coaching and all that kind of thing, tell us a bit more about your background and what you said about the management consulting. What triggered you to start coaching? Tell us a bit more about how you got to here.
Yeah, so I've been doing large-scale transformation programs for large and small organizations for a long, long time. And I think as part of my role within those organizations, I was always asked to go and coach somebody. I didn't know how to coach. I just went and had a conversation and I helped them. And then around about 2016, I was thinking to myself, well, maybe I should learn how to actually coach so I can have more effective conversations with people when I'm asked to coach them. I think what I was doing previously was probably more mentoring than coaching. So I came across an organization called, then it was called Bulletproof Coaching, which then became the Human Potential Institute. And what I liked about that organization is that it gave me that combination of how do you hold a coaching conversation with somebody and how do you have all of the knowledge and resources on human high performance.
Okay. Now, before we get into that coaching side of things, tell me a bit more about the management consulting side of what you do. And you said transformation consultancy. What kind of organisations did you work with, and what kind of projects you get involved with?
I've worked across pretty much every single sector. I think, David, I've worked also from like large global organizations to probably organizations that are more startup scale up, so 200 to 250 employees. What I tend to run is tech enabled business transformation. So an organization wants to move from here to here. And that can be a technology refresh, it can be a new target operating model, it can be very IT centric or very business centric. So it's all of the change management principles, I guess, that you would use to help an organization change.
Excellent. Is there a particular industry that you've worked in more, or and type what sort of size businesses are we talking about?
I think as my career has moved on, I think I've tended to work with smaller organizations. Although having said that, one of my recent clients was Costa Coffee, who have recently been acquired by the Coca-Cola company, and they're looking to take Costa Coffee global. That was quite an interesting PMO role. But then after that role, I had a role with an organization called London and Partners, which is the growth agency for London. So they promote London to the world for tourism and business. And that was a really cool gig because we were setting up a brand new business unit and helping them with a number of mergers and acquisitions. So the roles I tend to do, David, can be like very diverse in terms of size of organization and the type of work that I do.
Excellent. Now, a mutual friend introduced me to you, and he said that you did biohacking. I thought, what the hell's that? I had to look it up. So can you explain what you mean by biohacking?
So I've done a whole podcast on biohacking. So it's I'll try and distill it down as sort of as small as I possibly can. But effectively, what biohacking is changing the environment around you and within you so you can operate at a state of high performance. So think of it as you're putting yourself in the best possible place from a physical, mental, and emotional point of view to deal with everything that life throws at you.
Love
So
it.
that's the like slimmed down version.
Okay, I like it. And you related the fact that you were doing the consulting, and you kind of started to do mentoring, and then recognised that you should find out more about it and do it more properly. Tell us a bit about the Bulletproof Coaching and this Human Potential Institute that you work with. How much did that help you?
I think it helped me enormously. If you think of the Human Potential Institute, it was really broken into two key areas, I guess. It was having the coaching conversation, and there's an architecture for a coaching conversation, and it doesn't matter whether you're doing sports coaching or health coaching or executive coaching. You follow the same principles, the same methodologies around how you hold that coaching qualification. So that was immensely useful for my management consulting side because I then knew how to coach people properly. The other aspect of the institute was very much around the human performance and all the things around sleep and mindfulness and how you manage stress, the impact that light has on your body, how do you increase your cognitive performance, how do you take your energy levels through the roof. Of course, they cover things like nutrition and exercise, but they also cover things like productivity, the science around happiness, what success really means for people. So I basically then had the coaching methodology and all these tools and knowledge that I could then bring to my private clients.
Excellent. So tell us a bit more about the kind of coaching programs that you run alongside the management consulting that you do.
So I used to do sessional based coaching. So somebody would say, Nick, can I have 4 sessions or 6 sessions to work through a particular problem? But I then found that it was far more effective to take people on a coaching program where I work with them intensively one on one for 6 months. And at the start of the program, they have a series of resources, tools, tests, and products which really helps them during that coaching journey. So I would typically work with somebody for 6 months, and we'd work intensively during that 6 month period, working on probably 3 key goals.
Interesting stuff. Are there any particular kind of, is there any technology and products that you recommend to support you're doing with those people?
Yes, so I'm a firm believer of if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So one of the things that the people receive when they join the coaching program is something called an Aura Ring, which is a device that they wear on their finger, which helps them measure not only their steps and their movement, but also helps them measure their sleep and really importantly the quality of their sleep. So how much deep sleep and how much REM sleep they get. It also measures their stress levels and also measures their body temperature. So that then gives them some real world data that they can start to work with. They also have a gut microbiome test from a company called Viome. And what that gut microbiome test does, it helps them to understand the foods that give them energy and the foods that take away their energy. They also have a device from a company called HeartMath, which allows them to work on their stress levels. So HeartMath enables you to understand what level of stress you're currently under and actually train your body's response to stress. So you can then take yourself out of a stressful state. So those are just the 3 examples of things that I provide. We also provide a series of blood works for clients so they get a much better sense of what's going on inside them also.
Excellent. Now, I'm jealous of the fact that you're actually a published book author, and I'm really intrigued by your book Limitless. Tell us about that and what triggered you to actually write that.
Yeah, it's Limitless. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, David. It really, from an emotional point of view, you feel as though you're putting yourself out there and out there for criticism. Like, what if people think the book's rubbish? What if people don't agree with what I'm saying? What triggered me to write the book was, I had been through the coaching program at the HPI, and I felt as though I had a unique take on the world from a executive coaching point of view. At the time as well, I was also going through a accelerator program with KPI, and as part of that program, they encourage you to write a book because they basically say we're all sitting on a mountain of IP, and we've all got a unique point of view on things. So why not put it in a book and share it with the world? So I published the book in 2019. I didn't write the book with a view to selling lots and lots of books, but what has really interested me is the opportunities that the book has given me in terms of speaking at events, or even, there's nothing better when you're meeting a client for the first time and you have say a discovery call and you say, here's my book. I think it gives you a lot more credibility.
Yeah, totally agree. The transformation consulting that you talked about, was there any kind of mistakes you made during that consulting process that triggered you into adding coaching to what you do?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a mistake as such, but I did feel as though when I was asked to coach individuals, I sort of put my arm around them and give them some friendly words of wisdom, but I never felt as though I was making that much of a change. Whereas I think with a coaching approach, you get the individual to really buy into what they want to do themselves. And you almost find like the why behind the why. And that then becomes very powerful because they then are not motivated extrinsically, they're motivated intrinsically. And their chances of making a real change is therefore much, much higher. So for me, it wasn't really a mistake that triggered it. It was much more the interest in how do I do this properly.
Got it. Excellent. Now, you're here appearing on our video podcast, which is great. You've got one of your own. Tell us about your podcast and what you do on that.
So I started Upgraded Executive in 2019 with my good friend Ben Palmer. We started that basically with 10 episodes, which basically covered my book, really. We did 10 episodes around how you reach a state of high performance and covering different topics from energy to stress to sleep, etc. We actually started with energy, stress, and cognition because I feel as though those are the three things that people suffer with most. They're either suffering with low energy, they're not sleeping as well as they could be, and also they feel as though from a cognition point of view, they're not as sharp as they were maybe 10 years ago. So we started with those three and then layered on 7 more. And then we then pivoted the podcast to doing expert interviews. So we've had lots of different people on the podcast, and these are people that are at the sort of top of their game in their individual areas from a human performance point of view. So we've had Dr. Amy Killen talking about sexual performance. We've had John Jackwish talking about the carnivore diet. We've had Dr. Joel Kahn talking about the vegan diet. We've had people coming on talking about red light therapy, neurofeedback. So for me, it's been really fascinating learning from those individuals.
Excellent stuff. Now, when I got introduced to you last week, of course, I went onto your website to find a bit about you, and you've got this little list of things that you've done in the past. And of course, I was intrigued by the fact that you're a black belt at judo and you're a UK MMA champion. Tell us about that and how that's influenced what you do.
Yeah, so I mean, judo has been a massive influence in my life when I was growing up. So I grew up in South Wales and on a council estate. And I think that judo gave me a lot of the skills that meant that not only could I protect myself, but I felt confident. I think when you speak to people about martial arts, they always come back to a bit of a cliche around it gave me confidence, it gave me discipline. I think what judo really gave me more than anything was resilience. And I say that because from the age of 8 to the age of 13, I would probably compete probably 15 times a year. And I did not win one fight from the age of 8 to 13. But that taught me you just keep going, you keep going, you keep going. And I started having some success with judo then when I was 14. I had my black belt when I was 17. I represented Wales on numerous occasions and traveled all over the UK competing. So I think for me, it was that resilience piece, that piece to keep on going that sort of taught me, that judo taught me that the most, I think. And then the MMA experience, that's quite a funny story. So I was in university and there was no judo club there. So there was something there called knockdown sport budo, which was the thing that came before MMA. So I went along to this KSBO club, and after a few weeks, the instructor was teaching me how to punch and kick, and I was teaching them how to grapple and throw. So it was quite a nice complementary set of skills for the club. And maybe about 2 months into the club, the instructor said to me, "Do you fancy coming to Nottingham? There's a small competition in Nottingham, and we'll just have a go." I thought, why not? Why not, basically? So I went to Nottingham, and it turned out it was the British KSBO Championships. And I was fighting people that were kickboxers and karate and shoot fighters and wrestlers and all sorts of different martial arts. And lo and behold, I won the competition. Um, I was completely battered for about 2 weeks. I could hardly walk. But then they then invited me back to fight for Great Britain in the global KSBO championships. And I said, no, there's no chance. There's no chance. I got beaten up enough doing the British one, never mind going and fighting, you know, big Russians and Israeli martial arts people. So I turned down that opportunity. But for me, MMA was like very much a one-off thing that I did when I was in university, and it hurt so much I never did it again.
Brilliant. Now, when you've been relating what you do, you do quite a mix of transformation consulting and the coaching, and you've got the podcast and the book and everything. Is that the way you like it, doing a mix of different things, or is one of those topics kind of pulling you to ask you to specialize in that?
Yes, it's a good question. So in 2019, I went coaching full time. So I decided to pause my consulting career and go coaching full time, and I really enjoyed that. And it was getting to the point where I felt as though the coaching business could be a full time business. And then COVID hit, unfortunately, and that literally killed the coaching business overnight. And then I guess what I then realized is that even though it's coaching is vitally important, if it's paid by a corporate, it can be deemed as being discretionary spend, a bit like a training budget. So when the buttons closed down on COVID and people were being a lot more cautious, I then pivoted back to doing consulting more. Now I do a blend of consulting and coaching, probably more 80% consulting and 20% coaching. I also too found as well is that when you're coaching full time, it can be quite a lonely place because okay, there's you and your clients, but you miss that interaction of teams. So now I think I'm in a really good place where I love coaching. I love seeing the transformational difference on individuals, but I also like that interactivity of being part of an organization and a team.
Very good. Now, I think if you look at the last couple of decades, the kind of what we've lived through. It's been the rise of social media and cloud and globalization, and every industry's using more and more software and data to enhance what they do. And we've got the whole interconnectedness of the world supply chain. And we've kind of shifted from a complicated world to a very complex world where there are so many variables. A small change can have dramatic implications. Is that the kind of backdrop as to why your kind of a coaching is so important?
Yeah, I think so. I think humans have now become, very complicated. If you think of our lives, we're completely dominated by this. We are being hit by the news constantly. I think prior to COVID, we were in a position where the work-life balance was always being discussed, and I think people probably found it easier to say work's work and home life's home life. I've always had a problem with that because the roles I've done have quite often been global roles. Therefore, when 5 o'clock ends depends on when the country has 5 o'clock, not necessarily the UK. But I think what COVID's done is it's basically smashed together home life and work life. And I think now it's very difficult for people to manage that balance. And especially with hybrid working, people are now spending a lot more time at home. So I think we're living in such amazing times. And the rate of change is incredible. But I think that's having a massively negative impact on people because there's just so much going on. There's just so much information. There's so much being bombarded at them constantly. And I think whilst mobile phones are fantastic, they can be the curse of us too. So I think the need for the coaching is really important because you need to put yourself in the best possible place physically, emotionally, and mentally to be able to deal with everything that life throws at us. And as I mentioned earlier, I do feel that people are really struggling with energy levels, stress, and cognition. So I think for me, it's really about putting yourself in that state of high performance and performing as best as you can, not only for work, but for your family. I've coached people who have said, Nick, I'm smashing it Monday to Friday in work, but I get to Friday night and I've got no time for my family. On the weekends, I've got no time for my kids because I'm so tired. So you have to find that balance between being able to smash it and work really well from your work point of view, but also be there for your family in the same way.
Got it. That's fascinating. So, apart from the balance, is there any other kind of piece of advice that you've got for our audience and to how they could improve their performance?
I think one of the biggest things that you can do is focus on your sleep. And I don't mean sleep quantity, I mean sleep quality. So are you getting, great quality sleep? And you can measure your sleep using an Apple Watch, some Fitbit devices, some Garmin devices, or as I mentioned earlier, the Oura Ring. I think if you really start focusing on what gives you a great night's sleep, you will then start to see performance shifts across everything. Now, I'm conscious that that might be an investment in some kind of device, which maybe not everybody wants to actually do. So I think three things that people could do to improve their performance for free is one, express gratitude every morning. And I mean that express gratitude for things you that you basically wouldn't normally express gratitude for. So it could be the wind going through your hair or your health or something that somebody's done for you the day before. Expressing gratitude does it does a really interesting thing to you first thing in the morning. It just seems to set you up really well for the day ahead. I think the second thing for me would be pay attention to how you feel after you eat. If you don't feel amazing after a meal, there's something in that meal that you shouldn't have eaten. And to take that to the next level, if you weigh yourself in the morning every day and you're 2 or 3 pounds heavier than you were the day before, and that does happen, it means you've eaten something that day. So that day before, that you shouldn't probably have eaten because your body's become inflamed. And one that people hate but get to love is have a cold shower in the morning for 1 minute after your warm shower. It just reinvigorates you. And the energy burst that you get from just having that cold shower can last for hours. So those are sort of like three easy contemporary things that the audience can do to improve their performance.
I love that. Very good. Now, if people want to find out more about what you do and how they find your podcast and your book, how do they go about it?
So the podcast is Upgraded Executive on YouTube. My book you can find on Amazon, and it's called Limitless. And if you want to get in contact with me, then best place to get in touch with me is through my website, which is strongerself.global.
Strongerself.global. Great stuff. Well, Nick, that's been fascinating to hear your perspective and those 3 simple bits of advice at the end. That's really good. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed Nick's story and his look at performance from a human angle and his biohacking approach, and those 3 bits of advice for free, which is cool. Maybe it's new material for you to explore, and that's great. I'm very glad to have met him, and I'm looking forward to searching out that Limitless book. We'll be back live next Wednesday at 2:30, 14:30 UK time. We want your feedback. We want your suggestions. If you want to be a guest on the show, put some comments in here or email us at info@cloudindustryforum.org. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope to see you next time or next week.